Hello everyone, I'm a warrior, and this guy over here is a samurai.
Wait, aren't you supposed to say konnichiwa and then bow down? You're Japanese.
Aren't you supposed to disembowel yourself without saying anything? You're a samurai.
Touche. Actually, most people can't even tell the difference between the warrior and the samurai.
Why not? We're so different. For starters, even though people always talk about the samurai class, such a thing didn't exist until the Tokugawa era, and warriors didn't become the rulers until the medieval period, which began in 1185. Also, in the beginning, anyone could become a warrior, regardless of status. I mean, even Kira the farmer could take up the bow and become a warrior. Wait a minute. Are you saying people don't even know that most warriors didn't have a favorite weapon and used whatever means possible to get the job done?
Exactly that. Most people seem to think that Japanese warriors always used the katana as a primary weapon, when in fact they used all sorts of weapons and tactics. They also think that Japanese warriors have been called samurai since the beginning.
Whoa, hold it. They think Japanese warriors have always been samurai? That's just absurd. I mean, going back to how we are different, most warriors weren't too concerned about honor like you samurai were supposed to be. I mean, why would we put our lives at risk by fighting unless we were getting something out of it, like land? Also, the notion of announcing yourself before battle wouldn't fly. We relish in ambushes and deceit. If we could catch our opponents off guard while they were sleeping in the dead of night, we would.
Yeah, and because of that, you warriors kept burning all the houses and temples down, and now we only have a few left from your period.
Details, details.
You know, this banter's getting us nowhere. We should sort out exactly what makes a warrior different from a samurai.
Okay, but how? There's so much we could talk about.
Why don't we talk about the transition from the medieval period to the Tokugawa period, since that era demonstrates how warriors transformed into a samurai. We can start with what you warriors did in the medieval period.
Sure. I love going first.
The medieval period is important because it shows the warriors what they were like before they became associated with the samurai image. So tell me more about this period. It was you guys in charge, right?
Well, we didn't truly take charge until after the Kenmi Restoration, when the Ashikaga became shogun, or military governed. It was a funny event when Emperor Go-Daigo gave important positions to his family and friends, rather than to the warriors who fought on his side.
What's so funny about that? Warriors shouldn't expect a reward for every action they do. That's just plain greedy.
Maybe that's what you so-called honorable samurai types like to think. But anyways, what I was going to say is that it was funny how Ashikaga Takauji betrayed the Kamakura shogunate to help Emperor Go-Daigo regain power. But he changed sides again and betrayed the emperor for not rewarding the warriors, despite how they helped him out earlier. And that's how Takauji ended up becoming the shogun, which helped the warrior class take over.
What a surprise. I thought you warriors were supposed to be so loyal.
Well, we weren't always loyal. As you can see from the example of Takauji, we betrayed our master sometimes. Warriors are fighters, but we were human beings at the same time. We needed food to eat, water to drink, money to survive. And like you said, some of us were actually pretty greedy and just wanted more power. We deserved rewards because we were putting our lives at risk by going to battle. But when Emperor Go-Daigo only gave his buddies rewards after all our hard work, we decided to turn against them.
But you're still loyal to some of your masters, like Ashikaga.
Because he could give us what we wanted, or we had no choice but to listen to him if we wanted to get paid. However, there were honorable warriors like Kusunoki Masashige, who was brave and loyal. He tried to protect Go-Daigo at all costs, up until his death.
Is that what he really was? What if he was actually in it for himself too? How many stories are exaggerated legends meant to inspire people to act like these heroes?
Well, Mr. Big Shot, what did you samurai act like then?
Well, we were supposed to be loyal and brave, but...
Aren't those just idealized stories too?
Okay, I get the point. Well, I guess now that you explained a bit what warriors were like, I guess I should tell you about the samurai.
Well, first I'd like to know more about when the warriors became samurai.
That's a complicated question. Samurais are basically a type of warrior that emerged during the Tokugawa era. The term samurai comes from the word sabarafu, which means to serve, and refer to low-ranking military servants similar to those in the Nara period. So basically, samurais have their root in early warriors, but didn't have much influence before the medieval period, since the emperor and the aristocrats were in charge before then. But let us focus on the end of the medieval period, which marks a transition from the warriors to samurai. First, I'll talk about the three unifiers and their importance, since they play a role in some of the myths surrounding the samurai.
Oh, I've heard of them. Oda Nobunaga, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. They united Japan, right?
That's right. There's a famous story about the three great unifiers that goes something like this. Nobunaga, Hideyoshi, and Tokugawa are watching a bird that won't sing. So each of them comes up with a solution to convince the bird to sing. Nobunaga says, "Little bird, if you don't sing for us, I will kill you." Hideyoshi says, "Little bird, if you don't sing for us, I will make you sing." And finally, Tokugawa says, "Little bird, if you don't sing for us, I'll wait for you to sing." The story is relevant because it describes the method they used to help unify Japan. As you can see, the responses get more peaceful as you head towards the Tokugawa era.
Yeah, Nobunaga sounds like a violent guy.
He was definitely a force to be reckoned with. For example, since he had a huge grudge against Buddhist temples having power, he led an all-out attack against Inrakuji in 1571, causing thousands of casualties. And another example of his power can be seen is during the Battle of Okehazama in 1560, in which he successfully defeated an army of 25,000 with a force of only 2,000 warriors.
That's a lot of people fighting at once. Before the Sengoku period, warriors didn't form such huge armies, even though we often like to exaggerate statistics and stories. We were usually broken up into smaller groups who were competing with each other for control over territory.
Nobunaga was fighting for control over Japan, and his actions helped unify the entire country under one main power, the Tokugawa shogunate, in which we'll talk about in a sec. Nobunaga is noteworthy because of his use of new technologies to defeat his enemies. During the Battle of Nagashino in 1575, he used guns which he obtained from the West. The use of guns gave him an obvious advantage over short-ranged weapons like swords. However, one does not typically associate guns with samurai, even though they continued to use them in the later years.
You're right. When most people think of Japanese warriors, they're more likely to imagine guys with swords, even though warriors used all sorts of weapons, especially bows and arrows. The idea that the sword is the heart of the samurai is actually a concept that has been popularized more recently by nationalists in the 19th and 20th centuries who are trying to promote so-called traditional ideas, like Bushido, the way of the warrior, in order to increase national pride. But anyways, it's not as though gun-wielding samurai are completely unknown to modern audiences. For example, in Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, the samurai and the bandits use guns against each other.
Right, and it isn't uncommon for fictional depictions of Oda Nobunaga to include weapons he is famously remembered for using, the gun. For example, he is depicted using mecha, showing how he used new and innovative technology to revolutionize ways the warriors fought in Japan.
That's pretty neat. Now tell me about Hideyoshi. What kind of person was he?
Hideyoshi was an interesting character as well. He was actually a son of a commoner.
And he managed to become the daimyo? How?
Well, Hideyoshi actually started off one of Nobunaga's soldiers. He gradually built his way up through the military ranks, and the moment he heard that Nobunaga was assassinated, he loyally avenged his death.
Or did he just use his death as an opportunity to gain more power?
Anyways, Hideyoshi continued Nobunaga's goal of unification and became the next daimyo. But after Tokugawa took over, they realized that other commoners might try to follow Hideyoshi's example and try to gain powerful positions as well. The guys who were already at the top didn't want this to happen.
I get it. They thought it would threaten their position and influence, so they wanted to limit how much mobility they had.
Correct, which is one reason why they created the rigid class system in Tokugawa period. It wasn't until then that an actual samurai class had existed. Under this system, people were born into a certain social status, and it was very difficult and unusual to move up into higher ranking positions.
And here I thought warriors were the sneaky ones. That's a pretty clever way to make sure you remain in power.
I know, right? Anyways, back to Hideyoshi. Another thing he was known for was his promotion of arts, like tea ceremony, which had become popular among the warrior class.
Personally, I'd much rather drink sake. Besides, tea ceremonies are so boring. They're really not my thing.
I guess that means you're not a very refined warrior. Tea ceremonies are supposed to teach you how to enjoy the simple things in life. It's a way of showing that you are disciplined and not just a murderous brute who runs around killing people on the battlefield.
Well, what about you? Aren't samurai supposed to be all disciplined and elegant and stuff? The tea ceremony sounds like it would be perfect for someone like you.
Actually, I never even participated in a tea ceremony. I mean, sure, I know of other samurai who have, and I have hanged out with my friends at casual tea houses sometimes. But it's not like we spend our time sipping tea and complimenting the mysteries of life or whatever. I have other things to worry about, like money and my job.
See? That's the other misconception that people have about samurai and warriors. They like to make us sound like we're such cool, mysterious people. Most of us are really just ordinary guys.
Well, we are pretty cool if I do say so myself.
Definitely. Our history is really fascinating.
Moving on to the Tokugawa period, just at the end of the Sengoku period, Tokugawa Ieyasu took over after one last major battle at Sekigahara in 1600. After that, Japan wasn't involved in any more large-scale wars for the next 200 years, and warriors were finally classified as samurai. Now that Japan was unified, people didn't have a reason to fight amongst themselves. Therefore, there weren't any wars. This led to many samurai becoming unemployed samurai known as ronin.
That sounds rough. What would they do if they weren't fighting?
Sometimes ronins became outlaws like bandits in the Seventh Samurai. Again, this goes against the image of samurai always being honorable guys. But even though this was a time of peace, many samurai sent their sons to sword schools for training. There they could be taught about ideals like bravery and loyalty, which are part of Bushido, the way of the warrior. Many ronin who didn't have lords to serve kept themselves busy at these schools, although it was a kind of pointless to keep practicing when there was no wars.
Hey, warriors are not supposed to let their guard down. You never know when someone might attack you, or at least that's what a warrior might ideally think.
That may be true, but they didn't know what the future held in store, so it was better to be safe than sorry, I guess. It could be helpful to know how to use a sword just in case you got into a street fight or something.
Whoa, did those really happen?
Sure they did. Go read Musui's story. He was a samurai who got into all sorts of trouble ever since he was a kid. Anyways, if you weren't fighting your neighbors, you were hanging out at places like theaters and pleasure districts.
That sounds like fun.
Fun? You think getting yourself into debt is fun? Sure, why not? Many samurai fell into debt because they recklessly spent their money on entertainment.
Oh, I suppose it wasn't always fun and games then.
Samurai had responsibilities too. For example, they acted like police and government officials. In other words, samurai were basically armed bureaucrats.
You guys must have had it easy then, right? Since these jobs were only offered to samurai like you?
Many people believe that. Because we were born into a samurai class, we had easygoing lives. But on the contrary, we faced many difficulties, especially if we were unemployed. And because of the system that was put into place by the Tokugawa Bakufu, we had no choice but to stick to the limits of our class. For example, there were restrictions on ways we can make money. Selling stuff was technically the only thing the merchant class could do, but some samurai like Musui, who I mentioned earlier, would do stuff like buy swords and sell them at a higher price to make some extra cash.
For some reason, I always thought samurai were well off, since they were at the top of the class system. The life of a samurai wasn't always as glamorous as some stories make it out to be, huh?
Nope, and actually I'll let you in on a little secret. Us samurai weren't always honorable as people say we were. Remember that code of honor, Bushido, I mentioned a while ago? It was really more of an ideal than reality, since samurai didn't always live by those rules. In fact, there are many stories of disgraceful samurai, including guys who test their swords by cutting down innocent people. They definitely weren't following the samurai ideals.
Maybe one reason why Bushido was invented was in order to prevent jerks like them from abusing their power. Since they're at the top of the class hierarchy, they needed to be guys that the rest of society could rely on, right?
Yeah, maybe. And it's not like all of us were bad like that. Like you said before, most of us were ordinary guys, even though we've been made to sound more heroic in the later years.
The warrior and the samurai classes include villains as well as heroes, but most people are just normal folks like you and me. I think this applies to pretty much any society. But anyways, now that we discussed ways that warriors and samurais are different, why does it even matter?
Well, since they're so different, it doesn't make sense to say stuff like Japanese have always been this way, or samurais have always been a part of Japanese history, since the beginning. That's just wrong. Warriors and samurais, despite being connected, have their own unique characteristics and histories. It's like comparing a tiger and a lion. Sure, they have their similarities, but they're not identical. People need to get their facts straight, you know?
So why do you think stories like the relationship between samurai and Bushido have lasted so long, even though they're often inaccurate?
I guess that because they sound cool. Also, they were useful for motivating people to be brave, loyal, and honorable citizens, even after the samurai class was abolished at the end of the Tokugawa era.
Well, I feel like I learned quite a lot today.
Me too, and there's still so much we could talk about. For example, we didn't get to talk about the warriors before the medieval period, or how the samurai class came to an end.
But hopefully we've cleared up some of the things that make samurai different from warriors, and debunked a few of the misconceptions about them along the way.
I'd love to chat some more, but I really must get back to work. I have to teach some kids how to sword fight.
Now you better get back to guard duty.
It was nice talking to you.
Thanks for watching.